I want to talk about grief and guilt. These are very strong emotions, and according to the work of some healers of considerable experience, the view is that grief and guilt are at the root cause of many of the illnesses that people suffer from today. Now, the job of a shaman is to turn any difficult and challenging experience into something of value. So what I have to offer is the release of grief and guilt. And this is a new method which has been developed as a result of my own experiences, sufferings and personal difficulties, especially over the last few months. So this is what it comes down to. If a person is carrying a lot of grief or a lot of guilt, it literally drags them down, and it seems to have the effect of robbing them of their energy. And this is something that usually goes on for some considerable period of time. Now, in the work I'm doing with people, what I'm discovering frequently is it's an instance in another life that's actually responsible or is the prime mover. So, for example, the piece of work I did this morning, it was very clear that in this person's case, their partner, who has been having a lot of issues about controlling them, are in a very controlling situation in this lifetime because of what happened in the previous life. In the previous life, the person was jilted at the altar. Now, it's an old-fashioned word. It means that you're about to get married and the other person clears off without warning. Obviously a deeply distressing and upsetting moment for that person, and it had such an impact in their life before this one that they came into this life with that same situation bothering them, and when they got together with this person they found themselves operating in this way. So what I want to say to you about grief and guilt is these are extremely deep-seated emotions which are responsible for all sorts of human difficulties, sufferings, and particularly illnesses. This is now available, and you can book this by going through the website, and you book it just as if you were booking a USR. It is a completely separate service from the USR. That's because the work involved is considerable on my part, and it's very challenging to say the least, but very, very rewarding to do. So you go on the website and you make your choice using the contribution structure we have there. You make your choice which one you're going to go for, and you, in your email request to me, you request that you want the grief and the guilt releasing work. So then, in the same way as I do the other work, I will be travelling to the places where I do all the work, the healing space where I operate from, and what I will do is I will be working with your energy body in the same way that I do with the USR, but we'll be working very specifically to do with these two emotions. And at a particular point in the process you will be invited to release all the guilt and the grief, either or both, into a very specially designed stone, and it's called the grief stone. And this stone is actually the stone that I use for the very first piece of grief and guilt releasing work. It's a really remarkable stone, and it's got a very particular structure and shape, and it's perfect for the job. So what happens is that during the healing process I find out exactly what it is that is the origin of that particular grief, which may be in this lifetime, it may be to do with a relationship, it may be to do with other lifetimes. We find out exactly where it all comes from. You then get the opportunity to release the grief and or the guilt into the stone. And this is a virtual stone, it's an etheric stone, and I take that in the healing realms and I give that to you, the client. Now it depends on you as to where it might go. It's either going to be received by you and taken to your heart, or to your solar plexus, or to your sacral center. Those are the three centers which people seem to choose to hold the stone. So the client holds the stone in that particular place, the energy body is holding the stone in that particular place, and then I am requesting you to release all the grief and or the guilt into the stone. And that is often accompanied by the energy body showing signs of emotional distress, crying and other such forms of release. And then the person's energy body, the client's energy body, knows when the process is finished. We check with them to make sure it is, and I double and triple check with you to make sure that all the grief or guilt and or guilt are released. And only when we're entirely satisfied do I then invite you to give the stone to me. And then my job is I take the stone and I cast it into the ocean. This is very important, that's what I do with it, because of course all emotions are connected to water, And you can see that looking at the simple magical systems of the elements, water relating to emotions. So when it's cast into the ocean, the stone, that means the stone then releases all the feelings into the water, which is the appropriate place for those feelings to go to. And so in terms of feedback I've received so far, it's been very exciting for me to listen to. First thing I'm getting is a sense of incredible lightness, as if the 16-ton weight has been taken away, which is literally what's happened, because grief and guilt do weigh very heavily on the person concerned. The other thing is a lot of cathartic emotional release, which can be crying. It can actually be replaying incidents. In one particular case, the person replayed an entire year of their life. It was just like being in the cinema, and she could see everything that she'd done in that year, which had caused her so many repressed emotions, and they just came pouring out of her, and in very great detail. So this seems to be one of the features of the work, is it can provide the person real interesting background information. On other occasions it seems to be me that gets the background information, particularly if it's the past life work. Then that's quite often what comes up, is I again get all this detail about the past life which is relevant, and when the client reads that, of course, has a very profound effect on them, because it's something that they have not known all this lifetime, and it hits them like a ton of proverbial bricks. So yes, so it's a process that has a very deep impact on the person, and that's why I think it's very important to take good rest and good care of yourself after this work, not to be underestimated. One of the main reasons why this work is not offered as part of the Universal Soul Retrieval is because it's very specialised and specific work. So this is work that's designed especially for people who have some feeling that there's something that needs to shift, and they might have an awareness of grief unexpressed, or grief insufficiently processed, or they might have an awareness of something they feel guilty about from the past. They may have precise details, or they may just have a very rudimentary sense of something not being right in that way. So this work's specifically designed for people who feel that they've tried everything else and there's something that still needs to be done, or they've got a particular awareness that they know this is what they need to release. And what I tend to find is that the people that are coming to me are people who know this is what they need to do.
And then would you recommend a USR maybe after that?
Well, it's fascinating you should ask that question, Dan, because this is the way it's working out. There have been 3 or 4 occasions recently when I've wanted to do a USR for someone, and I've actually been stopped by the guides and helpers. They say, you can't do that. You have to do the grief and the guilt release first. And so to my great surprise, this is what's happening. So I've got the one today is actually going to have to wait until I get the feedback from the grief and the guilt release, and then we'll be all clear to do the USR. So this seems to be the case. It seems like the reason why some people have blocked the USR is because the grief and the guilt's in the way. This seems to be the way it's coming out to be. So it's a new process. It's having incredibly powerful results with the people that are receiving this work at the moment. So if you feel that this is the issue for you, if you've tried other things and you feel there's something that's just not shifting, then the likelihood is it's going to be something to do with the emotions of grief and guilt. So I invite you to sign up for this process, book in the usual way. Just make sure you put in your email that this is what you're requesting, the grief and guilt release process, and it will be done for you. You'll receive your full report as per usual, and incredibly important, once you've read the report, you will then be invited to activate the work, just the same as the new way we do it with the USR. And this is absolutely key, because if we're talking about releasing grief and guilt, the one thing we've got to be absolutely certain is that you choose to do this. And this might sound a strange thing, but there are occasions where a person will actually prefer to hold on to their illness because that illness is serving them a purpose, and then that person would choose not to do this. They would actually not activate the work, because they would realise that by activating the work, that would cause them to be free from their illness, and that for them could be a problem if they are not ready to let go of that illness. And it's a strange thing to realise, but often that's why illnesses are intractable and hang on, is because the person's actually not ready to let go. So if you, the client, are ready to let go, what you will do is you will read at the end of the report the activation process. You will do exactly what it suggests you do, and then you will feel the work come into you, and it's very remarkable how it feels. It's a very, very powerful cathartic piece of work, and you may find a strong emotional release comes up immediately you've actually downloaded the work. And as always, recommend that you rest, You sleep if you need to. If you need to go and talk to a close friend, someone you trust implicitly, you might want to do that. You might want to drink plenty of water to ease the releasing process. So we commend this piece of work to you, the Grief and Guilt Release Process. Thank you very much.